I'm Carol Owens, and this is Stockbridge Updates. We start with some sad news. Condolences, and the community feels very sad to lose Franklin Ripley. For more information about what happened, where, and how, we're being asked to refer to the Attorney General's, to the District Attorney, to the District Attorney's office, and so more information will be forthcoming. But also, recently we lost George Wislocki. He was a lovely fellow and a wonderful member of our community. But you know, there's an old saying, may your memory be a blessing. And let me tell you 3 people whose memories are a blessing: George Wislocki, Mary Flynn, and Judge Derry. And those 3 people came together on more than one occasion and saved open spaces in our beautiful South County, and especially Stockbridge. Let me give you one example. Gould Meadows, which is beloved by everyone as a marvelous hiking trail and an open space that connects to Bullard Woods, to the lakefront, Stockbridge Bowl lakefront. It's a marvelous, if you've never been there, pick a sunny day and go to Gould Meadows. It'll be a wonderful time out, and when you're there, just remember, it was George Wislocki, Mary Flynn, and Judge Derry that saved it from developers who wanted to divide that very 95 acres into 60 building lots. Thank you very much. I want to say a shout out and a thank you to our dear Katie, who's the new director of our senior center, and I have to say, she has a wonderful calendar. There's stuff going on every day. So hop on over and see what's going on at our senior center. And I'm told by Katie that we welcome everybody. You know, now's a time when Stockbridge Updates is expanding our reach, and we're reporting about things in Lenox. Look at our issue. Mary Beth Mitz has a lovely kind of update on activities in Lenox. We're extending to Lee. We hope next month we'll also be including Sheffield and Egremont. So as we expand, some of our programs in Stockbridge are also expanding, and we love to have you and we love to welcome you. There are 2 important programs I want to mention before I introduce my guest, because they're stay-in-your-home programs. And I know I'm supposed to be an objective journalist, but I have to tell you, state programs that encourage and financially support people being able to stay in their homes, to age in place, is something that I really support. And we have 2 programs. You can contact the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission about the one that deals with keeping weatherizing for different homes so that winter expenses are kept at a place. And there's another one where you can contact Dawn Lemon Odell in Great Barrington, and she is directing the community development block grants, which help you with much more major projects: roofs, furnaces, windows. So these are wonderful programs that help seniors stay in their homes, help them age in place, and hooray, hooray, hooray. Now, I want to introduce my wonderful guest. You've met him here before, and here he is again, Michael Canales, our town administrator. And the first thing I want to ask Michael about is our Berkshire Regional School District and their plans for the school. What's happening?
Well, like most of you, I'm just aware of there'll be some upcoming informational sessions by the school that'll be detailing out this project. And those will be happening over the next 6 months, where they're really going to be laying out the case. As far as at town hall, we'll wait to be getting more information from them where we can then do the analysis of how this would apply directly to Stockbridge, look at theirs, look at what's happening. So, in the next few months, you're going to really see a lot of information come out and
Well, let me ask you something. The one thing that people are very curious about, and frankly, some people concerned about, is what the estimated cost of a new school is going to be. Could you walk me through and explain how that will affect us in West Stockbridge, Great Barrington, and Stockbridge, the three towns in the region? What does that do?
Yeah, so once the final costs are established, the state will then issue its final amount of reimbursable, which right now I believe is $183 million is the estimated cost. I think it's $56 million in state reimbursement, with the rest of it being picked up by the three communities. The three communities did agree on a different structure not that long ago, where Stockbridge is now doing EQV, which will mean that we'll be paying a higher percentage of the capital. But that was put in play by quite a few town meetings before. So once the school figures out what the apportionment will be, they'll be able to get it to the towns and say, this is what will be your cost going forward, which will then allow us to look at that as how it would impact directly the taxpayers themselves.
So that would be added on to the tax bill, our share?
Yeah, because right now there's very little capital funding in the current budget because the schools have all been built. So right now it's a very small amount, a couple $100,000 worth of capital bills that are out there. This will obviously significantly increase that. And once we know those numbers, we'll be able to take a look at it and come up with some approximations.
Okay, so let's take a pretend. Let's say that the whole cost of the new building is $20. This is as a favor to me because then I can do the math. And the state is going to pay $5. So now how, according to our earlier agreement, how does that $15 get divided between the three communities?
Yeah, so we'll be paying probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 30%. West Stockbridge will probably be paying somewhere in the area of 15 to probably 18%.
So
and the rest
we'd
of it will come from Great Barrington.
We'd pay $5. West Stockbridge would pay $2.50, and $7.50 would be paid by Great Barrington.
Yeah.
And that sort of is in line with the number of students?
No, it's capital's not based on that. It's based more now on the equalized value of the communities, so that's the overall property value. And that's why it's going to, the percentage share of capital projects going forward is going to be greater in the town of Stockbridge than it was before.
So people shouldn't think it's based on the number of students.
It's in there, but it's a smaller part of it compared to. The operating budget is very much impacted by the amount of students that you have comparatively.
That's operating.
Yes.
But this is capital.
Yep.
And that's different.
Yes.
Okay, so, and then West Stockbridge is paying $2.50, we're paying $5. Don't you wish these were the real figures? And Great Barrington was paying $7.50, and that goes directly to be divided by the taxpayers.
Right, and then it'll get factored into the tax. It'll be just in the budget as you see it now, where we have an operating line and we have a capital line, and that capital line is going to significantly increase, and that'll be just done in our regular tax.
Okay, but here's what I never understood, okay? And this is a silly question, that's okay.
All right.
So we're talking about the total cost. So the total cost of the new school is $20, and the state is paying $5, and then we have this division. But that's the total cost. When it's applied to the taxes, we pay the total cost in one tax?
No, it'll be broken up depending on how many years we decide to take out.
Okay.
So the regional school district is going to have to look at a couple different things. Now, your typical borings are 20 years. A lot of times for larger capital, they'll extend them out to 30, and if you really want to, you can push it all the way out to 40 with a federal loan. So there's a couple options there. Obviously, the longer you push it out, the more your interest payments are. And, this is where interest rate and the longer you pay
Right.
and that. And even though it'll reduce the individual costs per year, you'll end up having to pay back a lot more.
Yeah, so the thing to think about is that it will increase the tax bill over a space of time.
Yes.
So you're not paying it all in 1 year.
Right.
Which would be
no,
a very big increase.
not able to do. So
Right.
there's going to be a bunch of votes that have to happen. There has to be approval for the bonding and everything else in order to move this project forward. So that'll all be coming from the school department, and we'll be there to just assist and look at the numbers once they've come up with theirs. So like I said, in the next 6 months, you'll definitely see a lot more information coming out.
Okay. And at the same time, one of the things I know you're working hard on is another regional approach, and that is to fire and emergency services.
Yeah.
So what's cooking?
So the last, over the last couple of years, we've been really examining what's been happening as far as emergency medical services and fire, and how can we address that going forward. And we began the conversation with Lee, and we're still working with them because they're still going to be a regional partner as far as this, but we're now shifted also to discussing with Richmond and West Stockbridge. Smitty Pignatelli started a group that's examining the entire South County EMS. So there's a lot going on right now. Our focus right now is, can we get a 24/7 coverage of fire and EMS that would provide the backbone for our volunteers? It would allow us to run a dual operation. Lennox and Lee are running this type of format where they have a core group of volunteers, and then they have their backbone are the paid individuals, the full-time individuals.
So you need 24-hour coverage, but you also need the shortest possible response time.
Right. So one of the analysis we did was with JB Consulting, and we looked at all the call volume in Stockbridge. Lee did a study looking at theirs, and West Stockbridge did a study looking at their call volume. And what it did is allowed us to look at where the optimal locations would be if we were to expand the operation. And what it showed is that for Lee, it meant their downtown, because that's where their calls are coming from, and coming from the northern section of town. And for us, it showed that we need to be as close to the 102, 183 crossroad, which would allow us to get as quickly as possible almost anywhere in town. And also assuming that you're going to get assistance from your neighbors, because the way the whole operation runs, it runs interdepartment dependent. So if you look at where Lennox new station will be, Lee's new station will be, and potentially where a station would be in Stockbridge, that would really give the maximum coverage for Stockbridge. And that location also very much improves the call volume around West Stockbridge. So that's what led us to the discussions that we're having right now with West Stockbridge and Richmond about how can we supply this. Because we know the more ambulances we get on, I don't want to say that our ambulance will just be us, because if you have one ambulance on and it's on a call and you have more than one call in your town, you have to rely on your neighbors. What this is getting more ambulances into the flow, so we have enough coverage when there's multiple calls. And that's where the system gets stretched. And the problem with an ambulance is you can go an entire hours with no calls, and then you can have calls come in, bam, 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 and all of a sudden the system starts to really get strained with ambulances. And this is where you could end up with an ambulance coming to Stockbridge from Dalton or from further.
And there's another issue, I think, and that is with an aging population. And I think our either average or median age in Stockbridge went from 49 to 60 in the blink of an eye. So response time just becomes more and more and more important.
Yeah, the average age now is 61.1 in a 10-year span. So it went from 49 to 61.1. So that is really very much an increase. It's going to put tremendous demand on what fire and EMS will look like in the future. We have a great crew right now, volunteers.
Yeah.
We're covered right now. I don't want people thinking that. It's where we're going to be in the next decade. So we're trying to develop that now. The plan that we're working on right now is we were able to get a grant with Lee. And what Lee's going to do is over the next 3 years reduce the cost of the ambulance while still covering us. And what it'll do is allow us to transition into a department that's running its own ambulance and fire. This is all puts a timeline on myself and our fire chief, Vinnie Garofoli, that we want to have this up and running with as much coverage as possible by fiscal year 28. So that would be July 1st of 2027, which really gives us a 2.5-year window here to get everything in place from permitting to certification to the whole 9 yards. We're going to be pursuing SAFER grants through the federal government, which would allow us to bring on staff that would pick up the cost for 4 years. We're going to be pursuing whatever other programs we can to try to get this up and running. And it definitely benefits communities as far as grading, especially at the federal level, if you have regional partnerships, that they want to see that.
You know, none of these are small issues. You all of a sudden have a very big, complex job. And I'm thinking right now about the state initiatives. One on affordable housing, the Affordable Home Act, which has been passed, and another that they're working very hard on, which is for climate control and establishing renewable energy. You know, I just heard on the morning news today, I hope that they're right, that we have started to reduce carbon emissions for the first year. 22 and 23 and 24 were going down, and they think that we can level, and they give the credit to wind and solar. Now, back to state initiatives. They really seem to want to take over the steering wheel here and supersede local zoning. So if there's local zoning rules that would impede the progress of building affordable housing or impede the progress of putting up solar fields and wind, whatever those things are called,
Yep.
the wind
Windmills,
thingies,
yep.
windmills, then they want to sort of overrule that. But tell me about this, because I've heard you say that there's still a place for local government to stick their oar in.
Yeah, so let's, so all three of these are going to impact the Berkshires and impact Stockbridge. So when you look first, if we look at the ADU one, so the ADU, the government just said, listen, we're not going to let communities say no to accessory dwelling units. So these are units that you can build either off your home or as a separate building, what people sometimes have referred to as in-law apartments or various other terms.
Guest houses.
So they have taken local control away and said, as far as you cannot say no, you must allow up to 900 square feet maximum a building. Now the interesting part that we're seeing right now is they're pushing some of these issues, but they don't have all the regulations or rules put in place yet. So they are going to allow towns to have reasonable restrictions and certain things that we're going to be allowed to place on these, but still allow them by right if they meet these criteria. The one that they have come out and said that they would allow is setbacks. So our current bylaws do say accessory units must meet the setbacks. So therefore, that part's going to fall into play. But what are the other reasonable restrictions? And right now, there was an article in the Eagle pointing it out that the Department of, I think it's the Department of Housing and Livable Communities, because it has a new name, they are going to promulgate the regulations detailing out what the ADU law will look like. So they basically passed an overall generic law, and now they're going to get to the specifics. And when they're going to get to those specifics, what will we be allowed to restrict, not restrict, what's going to be reasonable? Those are things that right now we're waiting on. I have read some opinions because various law firms have put out based on the discussions that happen, what they think would be reasonable, but not a lot of it's finalized yet. So it'll be very curious to see where that ends up. On the climate front, the state is very much pushing the Climate Leader program. Our green community sent to last year's town meeting the resolution to become a climate leader. We are now doing our roadmap to being a climate leader. And the select board at the last meeting just passed our electric vehicle policy, which states that if there is the best vehicle, whether hybrid, electric, that meets the operational need, we need to buy the piece of equipment that is the most ecologically friendly, but also meets the operational goal. So things that we know, that pretty much means that for our police, it's either going to be hybrid or electric. Right now, the hybrids have definitely been proven very effective as police cruisers, so we're going to at least be doing those. But it's also recognized right now they don't have enough power from an electric vehicle to be a plow. So it's not going to impact there yet. But the idea is that you put the policy in place, you prioritize the best, most ecologically friendly vehicles if it meets the operational need. So the select board passed it at the next meeting. Once we have the roadmap is the state has set a goal of decarbonizing all buildings, municipal and state-owned buildings, by 2050. So they want you completely off of gas, oil, or any other of those type of fuels. So they have mentioned, and I know this will make people nervous, is whether we look again at geothermal for town hall, which I know there was a whole history around the geothermal, but I would also point out that technology's changed quite a bit.
Something had better have changed.
That was the day that they did what's called an open loop, which, because of the sand content around town hall, brought a lot of sand into the system, and the system never worked correctly. They've pretty much moved to what's called closed loop systems, where the water is just looped back through down into pipes below the ground, held and then pulled back up once it's warmed up, and then you use what are called electric heat sinks to draw out the power, or draw out the heat. So we're going to be looking at all those. The roadmap that we're going to be getting is going to lay this out. And all this is going to be dependent on technology continuing to evolve the way we see it evolve. And 2050 is just a goal. It's an aspiration. It might not get there, but we're going to be one of those right now that we'll be bringing to town meeting, that and some other pieces of it to become a climate leader. So
I just want to say that in my experience, there are no perfect solutions. For example, when I built my house, and it was finished in 1982, it was a while ago, I made it all electric. And I thought that was a really good thing to do, ecologically, and it's also very, very quiet and comfortable. It's prohibitive. You go all electric, and you better be Mr. Has-Bucks, because my electric bill could run as much as $2,000 a month in the winter.
Yeah.
So there are no perfect solutions, and while electric cars or even hybrid cars may have a softer impact on the environment in some ways, they are from 500 to 700 pounds heavier, which has a tremendous impact, if nothing else, folks, on the road itself. Right. So we haven't gotten to perfection, and I hope that as you go forward and the wonderful committees we have and the consideration and discussion at town meetings and so forth, that what we do is pick the best of the solutions available, remembering that none of them are going to be perfect. But anyway, it's terrific. 22, 23, and 24, we made progress. Now, I'm going to wrap up, and I want to talk about the letters that Stockbridge Updates received, and one in particular, which was sort of the exemplar for half a dozen letters we received, and it's this. Altogether, too many people were not receiving their Stockbridge updates. We're so grateful that you cared enough and that you look for your issue and that you noticed you didn't get it and that you wrote to us. And we're going to help you as best we can, but what we've learned in investigating why your delivery into your email would stop is that it's on your end, not our end. And we've, in an excess of caution, we've taken every step we can on our end to make sure it's getting out to you. Where it's being blocked is on your end. So, first thing, check your spam folder. Second thing, if you know how to communicate with your provider, like AOL or whoever it is that's bringing you your email, then by gosh, communicate with them. I have absolutely no idea how to do it. And tell them to always allow this address and put in www.stockbridgeupdates.com. Third, if you missed an issue, go to www.stockbridgeupdates.com. On the upper right, re-enter your address. Won't hurt anything. If you're already getting it, they'll kick it out as a copy, and you'll still only get it once. But if you stop getting it, that might just jumpstart your delivery again. And secondly, on that page, you can look at all the back issues. And so please keep us posted if you're not getting it. We want you to get every single issue, and we'll do all we can. Thank you so much, and thank you, Michael Canales.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.